Supreme Family Chaos, Chapter 19, Flirting and Gossip. Creator, Eliza Phoenix. It was early morning, so Tony wouldn't be up for another couple of hours, and it was summer break for Peter, so he probably wouldn't be up until noon at the latest. Stephen cherished these mornings. He could drink his tea, read in actual silence, and properly meditate without having to go through the sanctum or Kamartaj. He promised to take Peter to Nepal after some begging and puppy dog eyes that the sorcerer couldn't say no to. He was an excitable kid, but Stephen knew he would be as respectable as possible and stay out of the way of training sorcerers. If he needed to, he could probably distract Peter with Wi-Fi while he worked with more advanced students. The rattle of the fridge opening startled Stephen from his thought, and surprise is even evident on his face when he looks over the shoulder to see someone digging through its content. Peter? Scott moves away with a Capri Sun and closes the door. Nope. What are you doing here, Lang? Getting my morning juice box? Stephen scowls. I thought I told you to stop drinking Peter's juice box. I said I'll stop when Tony stops buying it. The sorcerer closes his book with a heavy sigh when Scott sits across from him. Why do I feel like you want something? I wanted juice. You have it. Stephen deadpans. Scott shrugs. Maybe I want to hang out with you. So much for my quiet morning. Stephen stands up and walks over to the fridge to pull out some things from breakfast. And his eyes twitch when Scott slurps his juice noisily. He didn't react though. That was what Scott wanted, and he wasn't going to give him that kind of power. Not that it really was much power in the first place. He was also very aware of Scott's unwanted growing attraction towards him. What used to be a harmless compliment was turning into obvious eyeballing, and Tony, the unhelpful bastard, thought the whole thing was hilarious. Stephen was almost tempted to let Scott do something just to get the billionaires to take it seriously. Almost. Sausage or bacon? Depends on who it is for. Before he can roll his eyes, an audible thwop sounds and Stephen turns just as Peter bungees the ex-criminal up to the ceiling and covers him with more webbing, effectively sticking the man to the ceiling. The teen sits in the island with annoyance, and Stephen smiles at him and then turns back into the stove. Isn't this a little extreme? Scott asks. Stop flirting with my mom. Peter angles his head to look up at the trapped man. You can stay up there and think about what you've done. What? Your webs don't dissolve for 2 hours. Peter grins. Actually, that's an experimental formula. I have no idea how long it takes. That's just mean. Both Peter and Stephen ignore Scott's rambling after that, and the sorcerer slides a full plate of breakfast to Peter. The teen mumbles his thanks as he digs in, and Stephen fills his own plate and leans against the counter to munch lazily at his own. You're up early. Peter swallows his mouthful of eggs. I think I'm still on school time. In that case, I need to make an appearance in Kamartaj if you... Peter's eyes widen, and he inhales the rest of his breakfast, then blushes when Stephen gives him an unimpressed look. Sorry, I've been waiting for ages to go with you. Will you teach me magic? Peter didn't need to be told twice when the Sorcerer Supreme told him to get dressed. He was off like a bat out of hell, and Stephen washes their dishes after filling a third plate and shoving it in the microwave. Friday, please tell Tony his breakfast is in the microwave when he wakes up. Of course, Doctor. Shall I tell him of your whereabouts as well? The AI asks kindly. Stephen smirks. No need. Scott can tell him. He walks over to the floating cloak in the living room and throws it around his shoulder as he opens the portal into the mystical compound. Peter races out as the sorcerer steps through, and Scott yells for the boy's attention. Hey, short stack, let me down. No way, you deserve that, homewrecker. Stephen coughs to hide his laugh as Peter steps through the portal, and he closes it before turning and leaving the room with the teen following close behind. Stay close for now. Do you have your phone? Yeah, but I thought there wasn't any receptions here. We have Wi-Fi. Magical monks use internet? Levi smacks the back of Peter's head. Ow! It was a joke. He rubs his head and looks around. Where are we going? Stephen grabs the teen's shoulder and carefully steers him through another door and out to the compound training ground. There's a small group of trainees which are sparring with their partners, and Peter watches in wonderment at the different relics that are being used. A few resting sorcerers look at the teen curiously and whisper to each other. What is the Sorcerer Supreme doing with the child? Is he a new apprentice? One whispers, another scoffs. There have been rumors that he was co-parenting an orphan. It looks like they're true. Well, the orphan part stung. The whispers only got worse as Stephen pushes him onto the bench by a lone tree, a distraction. He can't do his job properly around the boy. Then the worst of all, he's going to get the Sorcerer Supreme killed. Hearing his worst fear come from someone rather than his head was a huge reality check. Was he keeping Stephen from his duty? A distraction? A danger to his life? Peter jolts to attention and looks up at Stephen, who gently reaches out and wipes away tears traitorously rolling down his cheeks. The teen swallows thickly as he gently pushes the scarred hands away, only for the sorcerer's arm to cross and his eyebrow raises expectantly. Stephen was too attentive sometimes. He could read Peter like a book. What are they saying, and who is saying it? Peter sighs. They're saying I'm a distraction and I'll get you killed. Who? The teen discreetly points out 4 trainees across the ground, and Stephen conjures the band of Cytorak around the offending people and yanks them to the middle of the ground. They all yelp in surprise and watches Stephen with apprehension when they regain their footing. Come here. Peter does as asked, and Stephen takes a few steps away before looking at the trainees and motioning to the teen. Attack him. The younger mystiques look at him as if he asked them to kill a puppy. But Peter was quick to realize Stephen's objective. He could dodge most magic thanks to the training between him and Wanda, Loki, and Stephen himself. And anything he couldn't would probably be deflected by the sorcerer. Sir, with all due respect, this is today's exercise. Now attack him. By yourself or together, I don't care. Just do it. It took a few minutes for the first attack to happen. It was hesitant. One of the three males approaches Peter and throws a punch, but he simply catches the man's fist without batting an eye. The moment Peter pushes him away, the other three retrieve their relic weapons from nearby and stand to rush at the teen. Peter uses his senses to dodge and deflect both physical and magical weapon and attacks. Made sure to stay on the defensive so he doesn't accidentally hurt the Mystic Warriors. A spell aimed at his chest is deflected by a magical barrier, something that took both Peter and his attacker by surprise, but they quickly refocus their energy on the surrounding the teen. Once they all lunge at him, Peter jumps up to the tree branch above him and crouches on the wooden limb as the four stop mid-attack and look up at him in shock. That's enough. Stephen steps back to the center when the four trainees step back in line. Can someone tell me why I asked you to do that? To prove a typical lesson not to judge a book by its cover. The lone female says, Yes, but you also need to be aware that he was holding back. He could have easily laid all of you out. Where did that shield come from? A simple protection spell. Stephen's lips quirk in amusement at Peter's whisper of "You're such a mom" from above him. Just loud enough for the Sorcerer Supreme to hear. With that said, I never wanted to hear about my son being ridiculed again. He is not keeping me from my duties, and he is certainly not a distraction, at least not an unwanted one. Stephen turns away, and Peter jumps down next to him and gestures for the boy. You are excused. Stephen walks away once Levi returns to his rightful place on the man's shoulder, and Peter follows him to the entry room of the compound. He is approached by another master of the mystic arts, and she hands him a silver tin, and Stephen smiles. Thank you, I was running low. The woman smiles. Your family is getting on your nerves? Peter scrunches his nose. Hey! Stephen chuckles. The Avengers, actually. And America's idea of tea is a joke. We can always have our tea leaves blessed by a holy man. Peter snarks. He is promptly rewarded with another slap from Levi. I'll be sure to get you some more next time. That would be appreciated. Now excuse me while I give this smartass teenager a tour. I'm sure he learned from the best. Stephen rolls his eyes. Oh, ha ha. The doctor leads Peter away from after pocketing the tea tin and fulfills his promise of a tour of the compound. It only took about an hour for Peter, but Peter seems to love every second of it. The overzealous side of him came out as he hesitantly asked questions one after another, barely giving Stephen any time to answer them, until the sorcerer finally opened a portal back to the tower. They both step into the living room, and when they round the corner into the kitchen, they found Tony looking up at the ceiling. They both follow their gazes, and Peter laughs when they find Scott stuck to the top of the room. He's still up there? It's been like 5 hours. Scott groans. This has been the most boring day of my life. I've been under house arrest. Tony looks at Peter. So, wanna tell me why Tic Tac is up there in the first place? He was hitting on Mom. The genius blinks before grinning and pulling Peter into a side hug. That's my boy. Are you seriously encouraging his behavior? Scott gawks. Of course. Tony points up at Lang. You deserve that. I told you Mama Bear is mine. Yes, you are. I'm not an object. Stephen grumbles. Yes, you are, the object of my affection. Now be quiet, Stephanie. The webbed criminal sighs. I hate my life.